person doesn't know how to write. Can he or she still write the book?
Once you have the blueprint, you know exactly what to do. It's almost guaranteed that any business leader who writes a book is going to see growth in their business.
But what's the secret there?
We start with, what are you trying to do in the business and how can a book help you?
Finding time. Where do I find time?
There are people who are incredibly successful writing small, say 30 to 90 page books that really answer specific problems.
The book is written, so I need publishing houses. What is self-publishing?
You're talking about years to get a book traditionally published most of the time.
When I publish my book, what do I do with it? How do I make money out of it? Hi guys, welcome to a new episode of Master Vision Podcast, where we get inspired by our future to build successful businesses and enjoy our lives today. I think many business leaders do not realize the power of writing their own book. In today's episode, together with my guest, I would like to discuss how the book can be a business tool. And I want this episode to be a practical guide, starting from the idea, do I need a book? Am I the right one to write the book? Then all the way to, do I have time to write the book? If I want to publish the book, or when I publish my book, where, how, and when I publish my book, what do I do with it? How do I make money out of it? And this episode, I'd like to dedicate to those who thought about writing the book but didn't know how to start. Those like me struggling for the third year because, I don't know, it's self-doubt or time. And for those who never thought about writing the book but seen their industry peers and colleagues doing that. So guys, please welcome my guest today, Heidi van Riet. She is a book writing coach working with business leaders to write their books that are designed to advance the business. Thank you so much, Heidi.
Thank you for having me, Nina.
Heidi, I would love to really create, a dummy guide for business leaders of how to do it. And I would love, at least after this episode, at least 1% of our audience to start writing their book.
That would be amazing.
Because I think it's a great tool. I haven't gotten to the final stage yet, but I'm in the process. And
You'll get there.
I'll get there?
You will.
With you,
Absolutely,
I'll get there.
You'll get there.
Okay, let's start from the beginning. The power. Right? Is it really a powerful business tool?
Without a doubt. Mm-hmm. There was some research done a couple of years ago and a study of 350 authors who had published business books. And 90% of them said that they could see the growth of their brands coming out of the publication of their books. Mm. The same amount basically said they would absolutely 100% do it again. So it's almost guaranteed that any business leader who writes a book is going to see growth in their business.
But what's the secret there? So what kind of growth, let's say, what kind of growth will it give you?
Right. So growth can happen in a lot of different ways. And this is why there's a lot of power in deciding how you want to use a book. So let me take a step back for a second. So a book should be looked at as both a product and this massively useful marketing tool. Okay? As a product, how do you want to use the book? You can sell a book. You can give a book away and let people read it and then come to you. You can use it as a way to establish your authority. You can use it as a way to help people along a journey, maybe like a workbook or something like that. There's a lot of different ways you can use that book as a product, okay? The power actually comes in also how you use it as a marketing tool. So you can use it as a way to articulate your authority. Mm-hmm. So, for example, even after you've published the book or before you publish the book, you can start talking about what you're talking about in the book. You can use little excerpts in your marketing. You can use it as a framework for a speech. You can By putting your thoughts in order in a book, you have to think really deeply about what you're explaining, which means any holes that you have in your thoughts, your processes, your ideas, you will fill as you write your book, which means you elevate your own understanding of your field and you can articulate it more clearly because you've written the book about it. And so all of a sudden you come across as a bigger leader, a bigger authority in your field. You sound much more articulate. In fact, just having a book, whether people read it or not, they will understand that you've been through that process. And so it instantly generates more trust in your knowledge and your authority, even without people cracking open the book. Once they crack it open, then of course they have all the goodness that's inside of it.
So it is a marketing tool. It's a marketing tool. It's a business development tool, but it's also a clarity tool for yourself to solidifying that your idea in your own
Absolutely
mind.
Yeah, and there's so many ways you can use a book to reinforce your thinking, to reinforce other products that you have, to imagine you want to franchise your business model. You could write a book or a series of books that actually allow your franchisees to, is that a word? Franchisees? Yeah.
Yeah.
To take your idea and put it into and implement it in their own space, but that's still exactly the same as your model. So there are just so many different ways, different types of books you can write, different ways you can write them that can accomplish the business goals. That's why I always start there. What are you trying to do in your business? And how can we make sure that you design a book that helps you accomplish that? So it's not writing some random book or writing a book and then trying to force fit it into your business. It's really, we start with, what are you trying to do in the business and how can a book help you? What kind of a book can help you? What kind of topics could help you accomplish whatever it is that you're trying to do in your business?
So, and we're going to go in all those questions a little bit more in detail. So it's definitely a powerful tool. Now, when do I know that it's the right time? That's it. Now I'm ready for it.
So there's a couple of things. One is looking at what you're trying to accomplish in your business. And in making any choice of how do you grow your business, there's always lots of options. You can, for example, I work with a lot of people who are doing online businesses. You could build a course. You could have a consulting product. You could have a service that you want to give to people or something like that. A book is another product. And this is where we really think about the book as a product. And how could it help your business more than coming up with another consulting idea. Okay. So you have to look at it across, well, what else could I spend my time doing? It's making any business decision. If you want to advertise on Facebook or on Instagram, you still have to think about, well, which one gets me better traction? So we first look at, is the book the right tool to accomplish the business goals? Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. It could be, for example, if you're in a phase of a lot of transition in your business, right? You're going through a partnership agreement with, and trying to figure out who's doing what and how. That takes a lot of energy. And so you may not have the energy to put into a book, and that's fine. The book's time will come. So I think while most businesses have a book in them, you have to really look at, compared to other things that I could put my energy against right now, is this the right choice? And that's why you have to play out, well, what is the book going to accomplish? What is another product going to accomplish? What is a business partnership going to accomplish? And all the different ideas you have for being able to move your business forward. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. And I think it's really important for people to say it's not at certain points in their business lifetime, because a book does take a lot of energy, and it can be really frustrating if you start and then don't feel like you can finish it, or don't feel like you can finish it well. That can be really, really frustrating process.
Now I want to ask you a tricky question. Let's say I don't know how to write. It's just a person doesn't know how to write. Can he or she still write the book?
Of course.
Right?
Of course. Yeah.
Oh.
There's many different ways to write a book. Okay?
Right.
So one of them is I can write the book. Another thing I can do is I can work with a ghostwriter who can write the book for me. I can do something in between. which is, for example, anybody who has a business can talk about their business. And a really good way to write a book, or at least get a first draft, is to talk the book.
Talk the book.
You talk the book. So you create a really strong outline that accomplishes whatever business objective you have. And then you just talk the book. Like you would be explaining it. You can explain your business to me, and I can write down your words. And then that's a really good place to start. You can also sweep up things that you've already got. You've got presentations and papers and podcasts and blog posts and all kinds of materials within your business. You can actually bring a lot of those together, and you probably have a lot of material already. So it's not always, it's almost never starting from, it's not always starting with, or hardly ever starting with a piece of paper and a pencil and going, how do I start this book? There's a lot of ways, and having a strong outline that will achieve your objectives is actually a really good way to start, because then you're never starting from a blank page.
Right.
And then you can choose your adventure, whether you write it yourself, you ask somebody else to write it, you talk it, and make some combinations of I write, somebody else writes. There's lots of different ways to go about that.
And we're going to get in details in terms of writing. But before that, the question is, have you ever had a client who came to you, wanted to write the book, but you knew it wasn't the right time for him, or he was the right person for the book?
Yes, I have. And again, a lot of times it becomes a part of where are they in their business life cycle. So I spoke to a prospective client one day, and the issue she had was she was doing 27 different things in her business, and she couldn't choose what to stop. And so she literally had no space to write a book because she wasn't willing to give up anything else. And so she said, but I don't have time. Okay. That's also a choice. You know, I can say I don't have time to consult with my clients. I don't have time to do my coaching or create a new course. That's okay. But then it's not going to get done. You can't just magically manifest this out of the air. You actually have to put work in. And so it's a choice in your business, just like every other choice. I can choose to run ads or not run ads.
Yeah.
And so that was a place where I told her, I said, okay, you're not ready. If you can't drop something else for this, then it's not a priority that's high enough. And then we can better not start, because it'll just be frustrating for everybody.
I think probably it's also with the book, it's a lot of work and not immediate results, and you're probably difficult to measure the immediate results, right?
Well, it's interesting because the process of writing a book is it can be long. It can be 6 to 18 months even. But if you start marketing the book while you're writing, that can actually have some impact on your business right away.
Right away.
And in this research study that was done a couple of years ago, they actually showed that people had pretty significant results even 6 months after, just in the first 6 months after the book was published, that they had pretty significant revenue gains across their business, just that they could literally tie to the book writing process or to the publishing of their book.
Interesting. Now, okay, so the first step, yes, so we established, can we write the book? Yes, we all can write the book. We just need the right time and the business goal.
Right.
Next is, what do you think are the main, fears or blocks or reasons that people don't do it?
Okay, there's a few that come up all the time.
Yeah.
The first one is always, I'm not a good writer.
Yeah.
Everybody's afraid of their writing.
Yeah.
But what I find is that books can be very conversational and hugely powerful in that way. One of the reasons that I love a conversation style book is because you get a sense of the person's personality in there. It's not dry. It's actually usually a lot of fun to read when it's conversational. This is why talking a book can be so powerful. So I don't think I'm a good writer is usually the first one that comes up. The second one is I don't have time, because people imagine that in order to write a book, they have to lock themselves away in some tower for 6 months to actually write, because this is what we all have in mind of a novelist, right? Is somebody who's going to take a manual typewriter and they're going to go up in it.
Struggle during the time. Right. They need to
rip
struggle.
the paper out and throw it away and start over with a new blank page.
Yeah.
That's not at all what this is about. So time doesn't have to be an issue. If the project is important, people find time to do it. And as we go through, we can break things into small pieces. You don't have to write the whole book today. You can write a paragraph, you can write a page, you can write a chapter, and then leave it for a week and come back and schedule it in. So time is another one that, yes, it's work, but so is running any part of your business. So it's just a choice of how you're going to use your time. The third one is more of a question of what's between my ears. And that's a lot of the imposter syndrome, but I don't have anything interesting to say.
Yeah.
I find anybody who's running a business has a different twist on whatever it is that they're doing, right? You have chefs who are cooking Italian and Greek, or one is doing Italian and one is doing Greek. Two are doing Italian, but one focuses on pasta and one focuses on fish. It's all fine. So everybody's got a slightly different twist on their business space. And that's what people want to hear, because it's really what you're trying to communicate to people is what makes you different. What is the different idea that you have that other people in your space don't have? And so anybody who's running a business already has that defined. And so sometimes we just have a hard time getting over ourselves of that imposter syndrome. And so we have to have a little bit more confidence that we do have a message that people want to hear. Yeah. And writing it down matters, because it might help some people find us who hadn't found us before and who do need us. So those are probably the biggest ones that I see. I think those are probably the biggest ones.
So what about the industry? Is there any specific industry where you would say, no, I would write the book in that industry?
I haven't found any yet.
Really?
No, I really haven't. I've talked, because literally every time I sit down and have a conversation with somebody, I'm kind of thinking, well, I wonder what kind of book they could write.
Oh,
yeah. And it's very rare when I can't come up with something, right? Who would think about an actress writing a book, right? Well, there's a lot of different things. They could either talk a personal journey story and how did I get to the place where I can actually make a living being an actress. They could talk about acting skills. They could talk about makeup on stage, and I don't know. It depends on what it is that they're trying to accomplish in their business. Is this related to them being an actor, or is this related to some side business? Maybe they're going to start a makeup company.
Yeah.
So I haven't found anybody yet that I couldn't come up with at least a couple of ideas.
What was the unusual industry you had an experience with?
So
you would say you wouldn't expect the book.
Yeah, well, probably the most unusual one I've had recently was talking to somebody who owned a daycare center, and she wanted to expand and start franchising her daycare center. And she was like, see, why would I need a book? And I was like, wow, why wouldn't you need a book? You can write a book about your philosophies on how you handle the kids, how you create a family environment, things like that, resources for parents. There's like 5 or 6 different books that we came up with literally over a cup of coffee. And she was like, wow, I had no idea how powerful that could be in reaching new parents, reaching investors, and all of the people that needed to be partners with her along the way to opening her 2nd, 3rd, 4th daycare center.
So it's so much more powerful than just a presentation on the screen, right? Or a brochure.
Definitely.
Right? Or just a website. Is a part of the overall.
It is, because you can go a lot deeper
package.
in a book. And it doesn't need to be a big book. We're not talking about writing War and Peace. There are people who are incredibly successful writing small, say 30 to 90 page books that really answer specific problems. You might have even a series of books that are small books, but each one answers a really specific problem.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So what kind of books are there? What type of books we can write?
Wow. That's a great question. No, it's a great question, because there's so many different. I started making a list one day, and I think I stopped when I got to 34 different kinds of books. Okay, so you can write a how-to book.
Okay.
How to knit a sweater. Okay. And I can write that into a book. I could write a resource guide. Let's stick with the knitting thing. Okay. And my resource guide has on all the different pages, different stitches that I can make in my knitting. Okay. I could write a book about all of the products you use in knitting. Okay. I could talk about how I came to be in my business. I could talk about, we talked about instructional guides. You can talk about 101 ways to do things. You can do workbooks. You can do guides. You can do journals. And the most powerful things are things where you I call them mashups, but you put things together. So my first book was walking people through the steps to become a volunteer. What do you need to think about? And then the backside of the book was a journal about reflecting on all the things that happened while you were doing your volunteer projects. And so you can take parts of different types of books and put them together to come up with something that's truly unique and appropriate to what it is you're trying to communicate to your audience.
Interesting. So if we take my master vision framework, which is about getting people imagining their future business leaders, very much like the UAE government does, and then going back to today's and mapping out how you're going to get to that future and really thinking visionary in decades, in a nutshell. So do I understand correctly? I can write of how I came up with the idea, where I got inspiration from, right? It could be a working book using that framework of how you can create your future and really imagine the future state and improve the company today. It could be what? It could be just...
You could be, for example, let's say you want to set yourself up as the authority in this space, okay? So you could write a book that's got a little bit of research in it, or stating a different position than other people have in your field. So really what makes you stand out in your field. You could write a book that is guiding people through how to set up their master vision, how to execute it, and things like that. Like I was saying earlier suppose I wanted to franchise this into other spaces. I could write a book about how I've done this in the government space. Now I want to apply it to the business space. So I can explain to someone, here's the problem that you have, and here is how you can solve it with my methodology.
Right.
So there's all different ways that you can approach even the same story.
Yeah.
But accomplish a slightly different business objective. And all of those are different kinds of books, because the book that explains, well, how do you set up the process within a company and stuff, that's going to be like, oh, I'm so bored.
Yeah.
That somebody who's trying to just establish themselves as an authority, that's way too much information. Equally, if I'm trying to say, I can now work with governments, but now I want to apply it to schools, you have to show why it would work in schools, not the detailed process necessarily, but that I've got some results and I can prove that my method works in different spaces. So again, it all comes back to, what am I trying to accomplish with it? And then that really tells you how to tell your story. Right? Even on the same subject.
Right. Very interesting. So can I make my book as fun to read?
Of course.
Yeah.
It will absolutely be fun to read.
Excellent. So, okay, now we know that we need to write. It's a great thing to write the book. Let's say we've decided, that's it. This is the book. This is my business objective. I'm ready. I think you've touched upon it, finding time. Where do I find time?
So, in my opinion, we always find time for the things that we find important. And this is where we come back to your one of the questions you asked earlier, which is all about, I don't have time to write a book.
Yeah.
Right. But you find time to do anything that you want, that you think is important. So if you've decided the book is important in the business, you will find time. It's either by dropping something or by adding some work time to your work week. I think we always find time for the things that matter. You know, if I'm suddenly obsessed with stargazing, then I will find time to go out into the desert with my telescope and look at the stars and start mapping things out. That's the reality of things. So it works the same way in my business. You know, when it's important for me to work on my website because I need to have that face to my clients, of course I'll find the time, you know, and it means I stop something else, but that's okay because this one is what I need to move my business forward now. So I don't know, finding time, it's all about the personal situation within a business. So it's really hard for me to answer that question concisely. It's more about, okay, let's look at the total thing and see where there's things that this should come in front of on your to-do list.
Yeah. Sorry, I laughed about website is the pain of my life. I think I could set up the whole podcast, create YouTube channel, run with it. But for 20 years, create a lot of things for clients, but websites.
It's that same imposter syndrome, isn't it?
That's why your example with the website. I agree. I think this is just talk myself through this. It's exactly that. It's about probably understanding exactly the business goal, taking the decision that you want to do it, and then put it part of you as you're planning.
Exactly.
But I think also if you could explain, because you helped me with that, you are my book coach, right? You're the one who's supporting me on this journey. Explain maybe to my audience also that, again, that it shouldn't be a really hard task where you torture yourself like I used to do before I met you.
Yeah.
To the idea, then perfect it, and that will never see the light. It could be just small paragraphs, right? It's all about the content, I think, right? The structure.
It is, and that's the important part. The first book writing course that I wrote had 30. It was write your book in 30 days, and it wasn't until day 15 that you actually start writing the book. That's how much stuff has to happen before, how much thinking has to happen. And the good news is that's actually not a terribly time-consuming process. If you put decent thinking time into what am I trying to do and how do I want to do it, the next step is easy. And if you don't think all the way to my book is published and in my hands, but just what do I have to do next? What do I have to do next? What do I have to do next? Then it is really a stepwise kind of process. I'm an engineer, so I always think in straight lines. I break everything down into little pieces. And that's how I approach writing a book is we talk a lot. Remember, we talk a lot about what are you trying to accomplish so that we figure out the kind of book. Then once you know the kind of book, a structure can be crafted. And once the structure is there, literally all you have to do is write. It's sort of like I've got a blueprint. Now all I have to do is build the building. Yeah. But once you have the blueprint, you know exactly what to do. And you know that first you have to do the ground and then you can start building on top of that. You can't start by, making the penthouse and then hope that with it hanging in the air, you can build everything that comes up to it. And a book is the same thing. You just have to figure out what you're doing and then do it.
Right,
yeah?
Right. And then you just think, at least it helps me. The minute I think about, this is the book, and I have to make it like this, and that, it just scares me.
It is.
Right? It's really scary. But if I think about, okay, all I need to write today is how you can build your company as you build your city, and just, an overall idea. Then it's easy. Then I know it's just a little step forward.
Exactly. And that's how I try and take my clients through it is we're just going to do this one step and then we're going to do the next step and the next step. And all of those things will build together. And eventually you have the book in your hands.
Now, whom do I need in my team? So I'm a business leader, decided, sorted, want to increase my income, gain new clients, go into the new territories. Now I want to write the book. This is the topic of my book. Now, whom do I need to have on the team?
Okay.
Do I have to have a team?
So typically, especially somebody who's writing their book for the first time will have a greater return if they have some people on their team, people who have done it before and therefore know how things work. Can you do it by yourself? Yeah, I did it by myself for a long time. And that's fine. But especially if the objective is not the book, but the business, then yes, you'll want to invest. Let me break it down into some chunks. So there's the part of writing the book. There's the part of actually taking the book and making it into a book. So publishing part. And then there's the marketing part.
Okay.
Okay. So on the writing your book, you can write the book by yourself. You can have somebody like me guide you through the process of writing the book. You can have a ghostwriter write the book. So in each of these buckets, you can either do it yourself or you can have a team of people. And how many people on the team, totally up to you. I would typically want at least an editor to be involved in the process. And editors can be used at different stages. Do I have my story clear? Have I written it well? And so on. So there's a part of the write the manuscript. The publishing part, if it's just the technical, you need a cover, you need your book laid out, and it needs to be put onto the publishing platform. There, I would always get a professional book cover designer because the book cover is the face of your book. And if you think about the way you scroll across Instagram or Amazon or something, you stop at a beautiful cover. You stop at a cover that resonates. So if you've got just some really badly designed cover, people will just roll past. If selling on Amazon is not the point, you can probably skip that part. But covers are typically really important. So covers inside of the book, and then the technical part of, say, putting it on Amazon or getting it printed, you will need some people in there. On the marketing side, it depends on how good you are at marketing, how much you want to control this kind of stuff yourself. Typically, people see better results if they have people who do their PR when they launch, not ongoing necessarily, but at least during launch time to have some people doing their PR. They can see up to, in this report that I was telling about earlier, up to a 5 times better result by having some PR people help them with that. Underpinning the whole process is, of course, you have to have your strategy in place. You have to be really clear about what you're trying to accomplish because it drives the decisions on every part of that. Okay. So for example, if you say, I can only spend an hour a week on this, a ghostwriter might be the way to go.
Right.
Okay. If you say, I'm really good at writing or I like writing, but I don't know marketing so well, then you may want to say, okay, I'm going to invest a little bit more in my PR team because I really want to make a big bang on that side. So you have to look across the whole process where you feel comfortable and where you don't. But there will be team members certainly at all 4 of those stages of writing the book. 3 stages.
3 stages. The marketing of the book. So I remember you said, or in the conversation even now, that you can start from day one, market your book.
Yeah.
Right. From the day when you decided you're gonna go you're gonna go on this journey to write your book.
Yeah.
You can start marketing it.
Of course.
How does that work?
Well, if you think about how you've seen some people who've been writing books, and they might give you either snippets of the book as they're writing, insights that they have behind the scenes. Look at me writing my book. Those are ways that you can build up a lot of interest in your book, and you kind of tease people along the process so that when you launch the book, when the book is finally on Amazon for sale, that you've got people who cannot wait, who've already pre-bought your book. And then you can have a really great launch like that. And it's an excellent way to become, if it matters to you, an Amazon bestseller because you really want to have sales on that first day. And the only way to do that is to get people excited along the way.
Yeah.
And that's more than just the people that you're going to give a few copies to and have them read it and give you some feedback or testimonials or things like that. But definitely you want to tell people what you're doing. People love that idea to watch you write the book and then see it come out.
Yeah.
It can be really powerful.
I have to admit something, confess something. So before I left for summer holidays, I created this whole post on LinkedIn and on my Instagram. I'm going to spend summer writing the book. But it wasn't the right time because I was in the partnership discussion for the new partnership. So 2 months of summer holidays, and every day, the whole thing, commitment that I put myself and promise out there that I'm gonna write book haunted me all because I haven't written a word.
But we worked on it.
Yes.
We did work on it.
You're right. Before,
Okay.
do you remember before I left? Yes, the structure.
And books take time. People understand that, right? And so it's not like you've bailed on the whole concept, right?
Yeah.
Because now we're in a place where we can go to the next
Yes.
steps, right? And then you can pick up there. I don't think anybody gives you any problem because it took you maybe 6 months longer than what you might have thought.
Yeah.
They didn't have any preconceived
Yeah.
notions of how long it was going to take to
Yeah.
write your book. So that's okay. You know, it's not like you've lost anything there. People aren't going to hold you to that commitment. And by the way, you haven't stopped writing the book. We're going to write the book.
We're gonna write the book.
Yeah. You're going to write the book.
Yes. No, of course.
With my hand on your back.
No, but people are holding me to that. I have everyone from my business partner asking me when the book is, to my friends, where is your book, to even the trainer asking me, I can't wait for your book.
I can't wait for your book either.
I can't wait. I'm definitely gonna cry once it's out. No, I'm very excited. I'm very excited about it. Right, now AI thing, because I have to say, I've seen my friends, people from that work, they get the books like like that, out of like pizza, out of the hot oven coming out. But I know it's AI. Right. What is the whole thing with AI? How do we still can use it, right? But what is your take on the AI books?
Okay, so the idea that AI can fully write a book for you is not one that I support at all. You can absolutely tell them without any doubt, and they can harm your brand to a really huge extent, right? If you come out with a book that's just garbage, because let's be honest, AI makes stuff up sometimes. So, you know, it could come up with ideas that weren't aligned with yours, don't sound like you, actually don't sound like anything. They can contradict themselves. So a fully AI written book will absolutely hurt the business. Are there tools? For sure. And I think there's some really powerful tools. I love to use AI to help me make sure that what I write is what I think I wrote. You know,
Well, how does it work?
So, for example, if I'm trying to explain to you, I'll go back to my knitting idea. If I'm trying to explain to you how to make a sweater, and I write things down, and then I can ask AI, "Can you analyze this? Have I actually told them how?" And a lot of times it comes back and it goes, "Kind of, but here's a couple places where you've missed a step." Or it doesn't make sense of how you've gone through this. So I love to use it for analysis. I love to use it for brainstorming. I love to use it for sorting out. If I have a lot of materials, I can throw in 100 blog posts and it can help me find things that I've forgotten about. You know, after you write 100 blog posts, you kind of forget what was in number 8. And AI can sometimes bring that together. It can see trends that I can't always identify very quickly. It can summarize things in a way that might take me a really long time. So I think AI is great for speeding up the process, for helping me with, is my outline accomplishing my goal? And is what I wrote delivering the message I think it's delivering? Because these are really important things. AI can also help in some cases with parts of the editing. I don't think it's great at all the editing, because it doesn't always understand how I want my sentences to flow.
Right.
But I think as a tool for helping me organize and analyze, it can be so powerful and really speeds up the process. But as a tool to write by itself, I don't think so at all. I would never do that. I think there's a risk of doing so much harm that it might be something you can't recover from. Because let's be honest, if you go out there and you start saying, you know, the sky is black and it's raining liquid gold, people are going to be like, what? Who is this person? You know, and what kind of idea is that? And
yeah, I think we see a lot of those posts now written by AI on social medias. That absolutely just generic things that
It is.
are. You don't even know what to do with that information. You better
Right.
just keep it.
It's extremely unoriginal
Extremely unoriginal.
and most of the time lacking any personality,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's really, really hard to make AI sound human. Okay, it's not really, really hard, but it always lacks a real tone of a person. And it definitely lacks the originality that comes from your personal perspective or my personal perspective.
So we are not saying that don't use AI, right? We are definitely use AI, but also be there, right? We're just referring to not books that fully generated by AI rather than using it as a tool.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Excellent. So the book is written, publishing. What is that? Do I need publishing houses? What is self-publishing? How do I go about it?
Okay. So there's kind of three different ways you can do it. I can either do the whole thing myself. That would be self-publishing, meaning I create my own cover, I lay out my book, and I put it on Amazon for sale, or I get to a printing shop and I have my books printed and then I sell them by hand. Okay. There is the other end is traditional publishing, where I'm effectively having someone else take the lead on the whole editing, formatting, marketing side of my book, but I'm handing over a lot of control at that point in time. Okay. It's also quite expensive and it definitely adds a lot of time to the process because traditional publishing is not something that you're done in 6 months. You're talking about years to get a book traditionally published most of the time.
I thought that publishing house, they fall in love with your book and they invest in your book. Not the other way around.
Well, okay.
So you pay them.
If you're J.K. Rowling, you're writing the ninth edition of Harry Potter, maybe. But typically for somebody who's coming up on a book on business, that's not the way it would work. Okay. And it might be a much more significant investment than what you think, both in time and money.
Right.
Okay. So then there's this idea of hybrid, which is getting somebody who can help walk you through the process of publishing your own book. By publishing, I mean you're the one who eventually has all the rights to the royalties. You are, having it on Amazon yourself and that kind of thing. So having somebody in between this hybrid kind of way of doing it is usually quite powerful because you have somebody who's got some knowledge about how the process works and the skills to do it that you wouldn't have if you're doing it yourself. My first couple of book covers were terrible. I'm still not a good book cover designer, so I just don't do it. I have somebody else do it for me because it's not my strongest suit, designing covers. The interiors, same thing. A book that looks nice inside, and it doesn't have to be expensive. These aren't always super expensive processes, but is nicer to read. You've probably also seen books that just look like typewritten pages and they're just not that pleasing to read. And a book that's written in a nice typeface, in a nice design is just a nicer experience, a more professional experience. And that adds to the whole package of raising your authority. Okay. So I typically advise people to go into this kind of in the middle, publish your book yourself, but get some help to do it. So I think the hybrid one is the fastest solution and allows you then to pull in the people on your team that you choose to have, into those three buckets that we were talking about earlier.
You said the book cover was disaster before that you had one of the right.
I've designed some terrible covers.
What is? How do I see it's disaster or no?
So if you just scroll through Amazon, it's not really that hard. Pick any space, and you can see covers that, for example, don't fit into a genre. If you think about romance novels, right? They usually have some shirtless guy who's really fit and a beautiful woman and some kind of dark, steamy, romantic kind of cover, right? If somebody came and said, this is a romance book, but it was a cartoon on the front, you'd kind of go, what?
Yeah.
What? Or if it was done with a typeface that doesn't work for that genre, right? Maybe a typewriter looking typeface. You'd kind of go, well, that doesn't work because a romantic story should have these really flowy letters. It sounds weird, but there are genres that have, it's like branding, right? It's sort of be consistent with the genre brand.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're having a horror brand in your book, you see some blood or you see fonts that drip a little bit, not just straight up, Comic Sans kind of things. Those are things I can use the novels because they're a little bit easier to understand, but within different business genres, you'll also have certain aesthetics that work and people identify it as being a business book versus a children's book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then also you want it to be on the shelf, be very distinct, right?
You also want it to stand out. Yeah.
Stand out.
So it's a funny combination of it needs to stand out, but it also needs to fit in. Right?
Yeah, you see.
Yeah, because I don't want my business book to look like it belongs on the kids' shelf. Right? I don't want my romance novel to look like it belongs in the horror genre.
Yeah.
Because then people are like, wait, but I'm not looking for that. And so that's why the cover design is so important, is you have to, what's the message you're trying to get? It's a lot like building a brand,
the audience.
If I'm going to choose a color palette or an image, it needs to fit within my brand image.
Right. Very interesting. Very interesting. Now, so the book is published. It's on Amazon. Let's say we've printed some copies. Is it good to have a launch event? What do I do next? How do I make money now?
Okay, so there's several different ways to make money, okay? Usually people think of a book as a product, okay? And so they think that selling the book is the way you're going to make the money. It probably isn't.
Oh, no.
Yeah. My mom will buy the book and my best friend, and that's not really. But some people, for example, write a book and they never sell it. They only give it away.
Yeah.
So they use it more like a lead magnet to get new clients in. And that can be massively valuable. But to just even give away a book, that can be really powerful. You can, so how do you market the book? There's a lot of different ways. You can do launch events. For example, you could, on your podcast, you could talk about it and you could say, I'm having a book signing. You could have your own event. You could have an event in a bookstore. You could have somebody else throw you a party. So those could be huge.
That's a nice one.
Events. Yeah.
Somebody else throw
me a party. I just need a friend. So those are ways you can do that virtually as well. Like I said, if you're marketing to your customers, you could imagine that you do some kind of live event online where you talk about the book and people can ask you questions. So you could translate that live event into a virtual event. So that's just the launch itself. So you can do what they call virtual book tours. So maybe you go onto other people's podcasts and talk about your book and try and introduce your ideas in your book and so on to other audiences than your own. So you have to think about it that way. You can do ads. You can leverage other events that you might be part of. You can, if you're a public speaker or you have the opportunity to speak, you can sell the book in the back of the room. Now, the more powerful thing is, how are you going to now take your product, the book, and leverage it as a marketing tool?
Yeah.
So this is where the power in your business comes from. So I have a book. I'm all of a sudden a much more authoritative speaker, whether I'm going on to a podcast, I'm public speaking, I'm on a radio program, it doesn't matter. When you're introduced as, this is Nina and she wrote the book Master Vision. And people all of a sudden go, oh, she wrote a book. She is somebody that I can probably trust because, like we were saying earlier, you have to think really clear and concise to be able to write it all down. And so just having written the book, you have more authority. So your know, like, trust factor is already improved from that. So somebody who then hears that this is the kind of work that you're doing may pick up the phone and call when the day before they wouldn't have if you're just introduced without the is author of, subcontext that comes with it. So that's one way. You can use the and is author of on every piece of advertising that you do. It's on your website. It's on your Instagram post. It's on your email. It's everywhere. And so you use it that way. You ask people who've read the book to refer you to other people. There was this commercial when I was a kid. I remember it was about shampoo. And there was this woman saying, yeah, and I told 2 friends, and it multiplied into 2 heads. And they told 2 friends, and all of a sudden there were 8. And then it grew and grew and grew until you had this picture that's full of tiny little faces, and so on and so on and so on, because you want people to say, tell your friends about my book. And they'll tell their friends and their friends and their friends. And that's also a great way to let things grow, even organically. But you can help that along through ads, through PR campaigns. There's all different ways that you can launch the book and then keep it alive. Because the nice thing about a book is it's a marketing tool forever. It's not just one ad campaign. You will always be author of. Oh. And you know what? Even if you dramatically changed business direction, you're still author of.
That sounds so romantic.
Right? No, I mean,
Very
think
exciting.
about it, right? My husband is an executive coach and a strategy consultant, right? And he's the author of a book that isn't about strategy, but he's still the author of. And so people still understand that he knows how to write things succinctly. He knows how to put a story together and that kind of stuff. And
time management for sure.
It still has a certain amount of the gravitas, even though it's not necessarily within that same space of his work.
And that's why I want to ask you a little bit of a tricky question for the future. So with AI tools, and we can see now in the last maybe 3 years, the amount of content that being published online is just multiplied, right?
Right.
Multiplied. Now, how long will that I'm the author of still be interesting and giving you that credibility and gravitas?
I think it'll go for a long time because too many people still look at writing a book as being too hard and they shut it down without thinking about it twice, right? So there's still only a small minority of people who write books, even a smaller minority who write decent books. Yeah. And I think as long as writing a book is underpinned by real purpose, real strategy, real thought behind the book, it will always serve your business. It will always serve you, just like a good course will serve your business, like a good consulting product will always serve your business, as long as there's that purpose and thought behind it. I think it will always work well.
I'm very, very excited. I can't wait to go at home, close the door and write the book.
Go up into your little tower with your typewriter.
Or better go on the island with my typewriter. Thank you so much, Heidi. Just want to make sure, did we cover all? Is there anything in our guide, practical guide, that we could have missed out? Or
I don't think so. I think, every book is unique, just like each person is unique. And that's why I always encourage people to come and have a conversation because there's always a story to write. Yeah. I'm convinced of it. Like I said, I haven't met anybody yet that I couldn't come up with a few ideas for.
Right. No, that's true. And I think the whole experience, I'm sure my book will see the light.
It will.
But the whole experience is absolutely self-discovery, self-discipline, and an exciting journey that definitely will take business to another level.
That's maybe a good one to actually just point out at the end, is it's a nice side effect of writing a book, is there is an unbelievable personal journey that goes through it. And I guarantee you, the day that you open your box with your first books in hardcover will be an incredibly emotional moment for you, because it is the result of a lot of hard work, a lot of thinking, and it's a very, very personal thing to be able to see a book with your name on it. It's a really powerful thing. And I've written more than 40, and every day...
40?
Yeah, and every day after, every time I open a box of books, it's still the same thrill. Still the same thrill.
It's like giving birth to kids.
Not quite that kind of thrill.
I have goosebumps. Thank you so much. I think it was great. I really hope that people will start writing their own books. I think a lot of business leaders deserve. It's must for them to take their voice out of their offices and put it out there.
Absolutely. They can reach such an amazing broad audience with it. It's a really powerful thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nina.
I think it was great.
That was fun.
I loved it. I really want to run quickly home to write.